Welcome to the second episode of the Mol Belgie Argentina recaps from Reality TV Warriors. My name is Michael Harmstone, and joining me as always is a Canadian for whom the word sorry means nothing already, Logan Saunders.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mr. Saunders, and as I was saying to you off air before we started recording, I am so invested in this season already. Even though I can remember the final three, even though I can remember most of the boot order, I'm just so invested. It's just so good.
Yeah, I did remember, pretty certain on remembering who went home this episode. It's easier when you know 5 people who aren't going to be executed that episode.
Yeah, I could definitely remember who went home this episode. From next week onwards, it gets a little bit fuzzy. I think I can remember who it is, but I'm not entirely confident. And it is going to get to the point later in the season where I go, oh, I really hope my favourite doesn't go just yet.
Just one more episode. I know they don't make it to the end, but...
Yeah, so as I mentioned last week, this is a bit of a weird season for us because we've never gone back and recapped a season where, in theory, we know who goes home each week and we know the results of the season. However, luckily, our memories are a little bit fuzzy, so it's nice to go back and remind ourselves of how good this season was and how much of the good work that we always talk about in the live recaps was actually started in this season.
Yes, clearly. A lot of things get established here. We don't see as many suspicions. We don't check in constantly with everyone's suspicions in episode 2, in contrast to episode 1.
No, because we were too busy being distracted by one of the most iconic challenges that they've ever done. I could probably make an argument for this being an iconic challenge, or the most iconic one. Could probably make an argument for the Drunk Museum Heist, or the Ostrich Maze. But I think that those 3 are my top 3.
Definitely.
So previously, 10 strangers met each other for the first time in the salt plains of northern Argentina, where one would have the task to sabotage the rest. They met llamas and lassoed money before dangling off a bridge in order of suspicion. Thibaut fainted and missed a task, drawing some suspicion of his own, but it was Ruth who was sent home. However, at the end of the last episode, she was given the chance to come back into the game.
I think what a lot of people don't remember is that pretty much this entire challenge, or like 99% of what we know about it, doesn't happen until the start of the second episode.
No, you get the kind of little taster of it at the end of the first episode, but you don't even find out the consequences or what she has to do until the start of the second one.
I'm curious what people were thinking at the end of the first episode when it originally aired. Did they just assume that Ruth was going to get back into the game? Did they actually think that she was going to have a paint bomb exploded on her?
Yeah, there was absolutely no indication in the episode that there was even a paint bomb involved, so that made Marc's comment at the end of the last episode even funnier when he said that Ruth going was like a bomb dropped into the group.
And then what's even funnier, is that the group is a ticking time bomb, and that also blows up at the end of this challenge as the group divides themselves into 2 factions for good.
Yeah, we kind of alluded to this in the first episode recap, but I'd forgotten how fractious this group is. They divide in this episode, and they do not come back together for a while. It continues for quite a few episodes in this season of 2 factions bickering.
Yeah, and it really, that division happens with this challenge with Ruth. I didn't realize how nasty it got with everyone figuring out whether or not to help Ruth. It was a very, very divisive idea.
Yeah, I don't think they'd ever consider doing a challenge like this again because it really destroyed the group atmosphere, and they don't get it back.
Yeah, it didn't really recover till the family visit episode several episodes later.
No, it sort of briefly comes back in episode 3, but then they do one of my favourite mole challenges and everything just gets destroyed again.
But here, the group, or Ruth has a series of questions. A lot of them are pretty much impossible that are personal questions each contestant, and if they give her the correct answer, it rules out the possible answers of license plates for her to enter into a computer, and she's allowed 2 guesses, which means she has a 20% chance of getting back in the game right without even asking anybody in this challenge. And if she gets it right, then she is back in the game, and if not, she turns into a tie-dye hippie.
So the episode does begin where we left off last week, with Ruth being stuck in the taxi that would take her home, and Papa Bear comes on the screen and says that the first elimination is a lottery, so she's got the chance to return. In a few seconds, a countdown timer will begin. If she stops it, the car doors open, and she'll return to the group with €5,000. If not, she will leave the game for good, and a paint bomb will explode turning her, as Logan said, into a tie-dye hippie. And all she has to do to escape is enter the code, which is the license plate of the car that she is sat in. And I had also forgotten that, to add a mean little twist, her entire luggage is also put in the car, because Papa Bear put it in there before he put Ruth in there. Which means that not only if the paint bomb goes off will she get covered in paint, but so will everything she owns.
Luckily, when it comes off the carousel at the airport baggage claim, she'll know which bag is hers.
Yeah, the problem is that it'll still be trailing kind of a red line of paint even when she's going through Schiphol. It's going to be mortifying for her. So inside the car, Ruth finds the 9 questions she needs to ask to everyone else, the information on the 10 license plates, and also a means to contact the group. If she enters one license plate wrong, the timer will double in speed. If she enters the second one, the car bomb will explode. And as soon as she contacts the group, Kathy is so nonplussed by the idea of her returning.
What's even funnier is that Ruth specifically says, I don't want to talk to Kathy about this challenge.
Like, I know I said this in the premiere recap, but I'd forgotten how intense Kathy is and how laser-focused she is, and how basically the first few episodes of this season revolve entirely around her. And I'd forgotten how early in the season that really happens.
And T-Boat really jumps in and hammers on anybody else trying to help Ruth. It's really Kathy and T-Boat against the rest of the group in this challenge. Like, there's 2 other people who say they didn't want to help her, but they were, polite and nice about it. But Kathy and T-Boat were like, what the hell? Why did we vote? Or I guess 5 of them agreed not to help her. The other 3 were polite about it. It's like, well, 5, the other 3 people were polite and nice, and then Kathy T-Boat are telling the people who voted that they wanted to help her, saying, why the hell did we vote? Majority rules. You guys are going against the group. Like, it gets ugly fast.
And it's really interesting from a mole point of view, because this is another challenge like the first one in the premiere, where the mole has a dilemma, because they can either bring Ruth back, or help to bring Ruth back, and increase the group size to make it easier to hide in, or they can eliminate €5,000 out of the pot. So it's a real dilemma for the mole of which one they actually choose on this one.
So I assume that what the mole has to do is just not let that money get into the pot.
Yeah, I would assume that they chose money over helping Ruth, but they have to be really careful playing this challenge to make sure that nobody finds them too suspicious after their actions of not helping Ruth. It's kind of a bit of a tightrope for them to walk.
And luckily, the mole gets a gift from the heavens, because when they do vote on whether or not to help Ruth, it's a 5-4 vote. If you're the mole, if you exclude the mole's vote, it was potentially 4-4. And if you're the mole, you could not be happier, because complete chaos and tension is going to ensue. And if Kathy isn't the mole and T-Boat isn't the mole, then if you're the mole, you really don't have to do anything. The job has been done for you.
No, you have to hope as mole you can sit back in this challenge, because if you get anywhere near the intensity of Kathy and Tibbo, someone is going to come for you.
And you'll really be isolated through the rest of the game.
And one quote that really made me laugh in this challenge was that as soon as Jill heard that there could be a paint bomb involved, he went, "I'm voting for the bomb."
He just which contestant likes to watch Bugs Bunny cartoons in their spare time? I wonder what would be his reaction if they found out that the car was going to drive off a gigantic cliff and have a puff of smoke come out once the car crashes. It doesn't work the same in real life, surprisingly. Or it's like the explosions you see in the Bugs Bunny cartoons, too, where they get covered in soot, or Daffy Duck's beak ends up on the side of his face and he has to twist it forwards. It's not like that.
No, it's real life.
It's real life.
So as you said, the group votes, and it's 5-4 not to help her. And it's so wonderful, because I'd completely forgotten about this. Someone wrote a scribble instead of their vote. And it's even better when you realise later that it's Tibbo who does it. And he only did it because he couldn't read it because he didn't have his glasses. He thought it said the word no.
Or he says, "Oh, damn it, I meant to put yes."
It's like, I know we mock Bertrand from South Africa on this podcast a lot, but I feel like throughout this season, Thibaut is going to get it so bad off us because at every opportunity, Thibaut screws something up.
What's funny is that his vision is just as impaired when he's fainted and passed out as when he's completely conscious and with it. They tally up the votes. Let's see, there's a yes, there's a no, a yes, a no. And who wrote Batman symbol? What does this even mean? And people accuse Thibaut of just completely screwing with the group and wanting to abstain from voting just to see what the hell happens.
I think in this challenge, if Thibaut was one of the alignments, he would be chaotic evil, because he just tries to mess with people in this one, intentionally or unintentionally.
It actually reminds me of something. Did you ever see the very first season of the American version of The Apprentice?
Not for a while.
Okay. So a long time ago, in the first season of The Apprentice, the two teams there was this real estate challenge, and they had to figure out which team was going to try and sell which property or something within the property. And both teams wanted the exact same property, but they didn't know what the other team wanted. So it became this big standoff. So the team captain for the challenge on each team, the project manager, they agreed to write on a slip of paper which one they wanted and then slide it over to the other person. And the one team, the women's team, writes down which one they wanted. And then the guy on the men's team writes down, I want what you want, and slid that over to the other person. So he got to see what the women's team wanted, and then the women's team was completely pissed off with him because he never gave a straight answer. And that's what it reminds me of Thibaut just not even writing down yes or no. He just wanted to see where everyone else stands, allegedly.
Yeah, like he's just such a Burke.
What's a Burke?
Just means he's an idiot. He's just such a moron in this challenge, and as much as I obviously have a bit of a soft spot for him, he's just an idiot here.
And these questions are brutal.
Yeah, they are. So Bruno breaks the news to Ruth that nobody wants to help her, and understandably she's a little bit heartbroken, as you would be if you just found out that in less than an hour a paint bomb's going to explode all over you and nobody is willing to help. And it was Thibaut, Kathy, Manuela, Marc and Stijn who voted no, and then Bruno, Hannah, Gilles and Isabel voted yes. And Ruth then tries to get them to help her so she can at least eliminate 4 of the number plates. So the first question is for Hannah. All she has to do is tell Ruth what the brand of her boyfriend's glasses is. And she says that it's Chanel. The second question is for Bruno, and that is whether he has a book in his living room that is a story about a mole who has poo on his head. He says yes. And after the second question's asked, the no voters disagree with the decision of the yes voters to help, so the game stops again. And then after they agree to back off, the third question is for Isabel, and her question is that if she looks out from her apartment window, she sees a sign for Vase in Zonen. What type of business is it? Thibaut, being a chaotic evil, leads her astray and says that it's an NV. And then the only other question she gets to ask is which electronic company's billboard is in Times Square on a poster on Gilles' wall. He has a guess at Nokia, but it is actually Samsung. And shocking nobody, after the first 2 questions get asked, Kathy obviously steps in and says, "Why are you even helping her? We agreed as a group that we weren't helping her."
I don't know if you agreed as a group. You agreed as 5 individuals not to help her.
But before we actually see Isa and Gilles agree to help her, she actually says over the walkie-talkie that there's 35 minutes left. And by the time that she's got the answer for Gilles' question, if you look at the clock, it actually says 39:17. So to quote my good friend Anthony Williams, there is a little bit of monkeying with the timeline with this challenge.
I guess there's just so much going on and you want to show the right tension at the right moments in the editing suite.
Yeah, but still, I still spotted it. Arguably on my second watch of this in 5 years, but I still managed to pick up on it. And they usually do cut this sort of thing out if they don't want me to spot it. So, after the 4 do decide to help her, Ruth is pretty much on her own and decides to go for the 1 in 3 chance that she's got. So the first one she enters is AFH 129, which is of course wrong, so the timer doubles.
Her plea, that was a brutal plea to hear where she's like, is anyone else going to help me? No? I guess I'll do this myself. If I die from this bomb, please remember me fondly.
Please, just tell my kids I love them.
Yeah. Question. What sign is outside of Ruth's kid's house? What brand are their glasses? What country was their friend's third grade school teacher from? And which contestant was born in Kosovo? Was that one of the questions? Because we get a brief snippet, and at one point she's like, oh, Kosovo.
I don't know. I completely kind of skipped over that when I was doing my notes.
Yeah, because there's like 3 questions because of some of the people who refused to help her. We just get like a quick montage of Ruth flipping through the questions. And one of them was like, which country was this contestant born? She's like, I guess Kosovo. So I'm wondering who the hell would have been born in Kosovo?
Yeah, unless it was something like, which country did this person meet their significant other in?
Yeah, who meets... I don't know of too many Belgian Kosovar couples.
You never know, because Kathy does live in Greece.
Yeah, but Greece is a bit more well-known or iconic and more populated than, say, Kosovo.
Yeah, but is there really a significant Flemish community in Greece?
Probably.
Other than Kathy and her husband and her kids now?
Well, now we have a whole season of Belgian Mol in Greece, and they had to intentionally avoid major locations to avoid being spotted, so I'm guessing there's got to be some Belgians in Greece. Certainly more than in Kosovo.
I know there's at least one, because Papa Bear did say that during the filming he got asked by someone in a hotel whether he was there filming the mole, and he ended up having to pretend that he wasn't Belgian, I think it was.
In Kosovo?
No, in Greece.
Oh.
When they were filming the Greek season, this is.
Oh, he was there during that. I didn't know that.
So we don't see which number plate Ruth types in second, but in a beautiful bit of editing, they make us think that she's typed it in right, but actually she's wrong. Time slows down, everything explodes. It's wonderful.
And they all get to watch it explode, and they all get to see it blow up in her face. When they say, "Oh, that's what happened to you, Ruth?" Oh, I on the quiz, I went straight ticket on one suspect, and then it all blew up in my face.
Like, I know we're not going to get into the habit of eulogizing first boots, despite the fact they all get montages which makes you laugh so hard every time it happens. But Ruth is genuinely one of the most tragic figures in reality TV history, in my opinion. Firstly, she looks like a complete idiot in the first episode. She goes straight ticket on the first quiz, which is never a good idea. She gets eliminated, gets the chance to come back. Nobody's willing to help her, basically. And then she leaves Argentina with a paint-covered rucksack. And when I say that she is covered head to toe in red paint. It is a terrible way for her to go.
I went to Argentina to play the mole, and all I got was this lousy t-shirt covered in paint.
Yeah, she is utterly destroyed by this show.
Well, if Tide ever needs a spokesperson for their detergent, Ruth has got a good gig lined up.
So, anyway, let's ignore Ruth's existence completely and move on.
Goodbye, Ruth. Goodbye, Ruth.
So we do get a few little eulogies for Ruth before we actually do forget about her. Beginning with one of my favourites, which is beautifully sympathetic Kathy going, well, if she was more open and I knew her better, I might have helped her, but I didn't. So bye, Ruth.
They will not be friends on Facebook.
Kathy is utterly brutal here, and it's wonderful. And then Manuela and Stijn also give their eulogies. Manuela says she's already having regrets, and Stijn says sorry, even though the words probably mean nothing.
Yeah, do they even have a word for that in Flemish?
Yeah, I believe it's fuck off, Ruth.
Godverdomme.
So the remaining 9 wake up on day 4 in Cabra Corral, and Bruno is definitely hungover.
They all complained that they drank. A lot of them said they were hungover.
Yeah, maybe the alcohol was impairing their judgment as to whether to help the most tragic figure in reality TV history.
Yeah. Let's ask 9 inebriated people to remember what company's cell phone or what cell phone company is in a painting on a contestant's wall in their house that they haven't been to for several weeks. Because when I look at a painting, I'm like, oh my god, there's a Nokia building? Shit. I gotta buy this.
I would argue that there was no chance in hell that Ruth was ever going to win that challenge, even if everyone wanted to help her.
The odds were there, though.
The odds were there, but even when she got half of the group to help her, it still only reduced her chance to 1 in 3 because not everybody helped her.
Still better than being executed 99% of the time.
Yeah, I would argue that because the mole almost certainly knew what the correct number plate was, that even if everyone had agreed to help her, the mole could have still discarded the number plate that was correct and therefore made them lose the challenge regardless.
Very strong possibility.
You have to bear in mind that all it takes for the mole to win and for Ruth not to come back is for the mole to give one wrong answer and that discard the correct number plate.
True. Would have been easy to keep that 5k out of the pot.
So as a peace offering for sending Ruth home, Kathy makes Isabel and Jill breakfast in bed, and she says she's trying to shake her bitchy image, and given what we know about the next sort of episode and a half, 2 episodes, something tells me that's not going to succeed.
Essentially, it's, here's some breakfast, guys. Now stay in the same fucking seat for the next 3 meals so I can take notes on you.
And if you just turn the camera slightly, you'll see Bart in the background just going, do you want breakfast in bed, or do you want to find out who the mole is?
Well, we know what Kathy's answer is. The thing is, the difference with Bart, though, is that Bart would eat all the breakfasts. Like, Kathy tries to make Bart breakfast in bed. He'll just assume both plates are for him.
Also, fun behind-the-scenes story, it was going to be Marc and Kathy who brought breakfast in bed in, but Marc was a little bit worried that he might see Jill in less than full clothing when he went to deliver the breakfast in bed, so just made Kathy do it instead.
He wore the sleeping bag as a blindfold.
Yeah, he just wasn't confident enough to walk into Jill's bedroom after they got off on the wrong foot last week.
I don't want to see them getting off on the wrong foot.
He also didn't know for certain whether gay people eat breakfast or not, so just sent Kathy in to deliver it, just to be safe.
Is it 3 meals a day? Or is it like a nice salad and then, I don't know, some sort of complimentary dish? It's like an after-school special with Marc.
It's such a shame that we lose him this week, because genuinely I could spend the rest of the season just doing Marc learns things about gay people jokes. It's already my favourite, and we're only 2 episodes in.
What would have been great is if later on, like episode 5 or something, he's like, what? Women can be gay too? I thought it only applied to men. Mind blown. How does that even work? I don't understand. Like, you don't, like, how do you not want that in your brain?
And Papa Bear meets them on the Isla de los Deseos with a really simple challenge. They must split into 2 groups and must switch seats between 2 banana boats that are being towed by a speedboat. And they get 30 minutes to switch, and if they manage to switch all 9 people, they earn €4,000 for the pot.
I think a challenge involving 2 bananas made Marc really uncomfortable.
Yeah, Marc did ask whether he could wear his sleeping bag for this challenge, and Papa Bear just turned around and went, no bueno, amigo.
So, he wears a sleeping bag on the boat and tries to jump on. It's like a hop. It's a hop from the boat. It's just a sleeping bag completely drenched for the rest of the time in the game.
Marc is just ever so slightly uncomfortable by the concept of riding 2 inflatable bananas with other men. That's all it is.
Maybe he essentially self-evicted with this second execution just through the quiz.
Yeah, he was just like, I can't spend another minute riding bananas with other men. It's just not for me, I'm sorry. Yeah, and as you said to me when you watched this episode yesterday, this is possibly the fastest challenge in Mole history. It goes so fast.
I think it was. I almost want to go back right now and just get an exact time on it.
I don't think it lasted more than about 2 or 3 minutes.
Does it even reach 2 minutes? I think the explanation was longer than the challenge itself.
Yeah, because this is a really rapid-fire challenge when half of the episode was actually taken up by the Ruth potential elimination game.
By the paint bomb and then the following one? Yeah, let's get a timestamp on this. Are we including Jill's explanation or from when the challenge starts?
If you have a look at when Papa Bear's explanation finishes, and then look at the end of the challenge and see which bit's longer.
Okay. I'm going for more when he says who goes where, because that's essentially when the contestants are deciding. Let's see, that's 1848. Holy shit, it's fast. Holy crap. Okay, so the challenge starts from after Jill's explanation. This is including like discussion of who goes where on the boats. It includes all of that. So that starts at 18 minutes and 48 seconds in the episode and ends at 21 minutes and 27 seconds, which puts it at
2 minutes and 40.
That's 2 minutes and yeah. And even their celebration is like 2 seconds and then they're put into the cars right away. And then if you just want to go by when they're in, like get into the boats after like they're done chatting about who goes where, then it is... Okay, so they don't even get into the boats until 19 minutes and 18 seconds.
So that is 2 minutes and 10 then.
Yeah. The crazy thing is that there is a 30-minute time limit, and they don't get it until 1 minute and 47 seconds were left in the challenge.
So yeah, there's a whole heap of falling, and with just over 5 minutes left, they make 6 switches, but then Marc overshoots, probably because he was dressed in his sleeping bag to avoid being in close contact with other men while riding bananas. And with 106 seconds left, they manage to make the switches and earn €4,000 for the pot. And also, as they're getting back in the cars, the song Bamboleo plays, which is highly inappropriate because I know for a fact this show did not air on a Wednesday, and Bamboleo must only be played on a Wednesday.
I don't get it.
Yeah, you weren't meant to, it's a UK reference. So, basically, my favourite radio show over here is presented by a guy called Scott Mills, and every Wednesday afternoon he plays Bamboleo by the Gypsy Kings, and essentially everyone kind of loses their mind and celebrates it being midweek.
Oh.
And it's got to the point where if it's played on any other radio station at any other time than on a Wednesday afternoon, he will get tweets off people going, "They're playing Bamboleo on this radio station. That is not appropriate at this time of day." So, after the challenge, they drive to San Lorenzo, which is a suburb of Salta, and Thibaut says that the game is quickly split into 2 groups, those who take notes and those who don't. And surprise, surprise, Kathy is queen of note-taking, along with Gilles and Thibaut, and Kathy says that you can only get through a few episodes without note-taking, or by being the mole. And contrast that with Manuela, who says she just wants to have a bit of fun and not take the game so seriously.
All I wanna do is have some fun.
And Manuela says she'd be shocked if it was Isabel who's the mole, as she's too open with the group. And Kathy says she's beginning to discount Gilles, as he's way too emotional after the Ruth Bomb challenge, and he felt so guilty. Bruno says that Marc was playing far too hard as soon as the no vote was revealed. And then Papa Bear meets him in San Lorenzo on day 5, and says that there are 2 places that Argentines find holy: their church and their football stadium. They need to split into 2 groups, 6 sporty pilgrims, and 3 clever footballers.
In other words, people who aren't suspected as the mole are in one group, and all of the suspicious people are in the other group, so they can win at least one challenge.
Yeah, and I'd forgotten how much fun this split challenge is, because it is really, really fun. Because it ends up being Hannah, Stijn, and Isabel who are clever footballers, and the other 6 are the sporty pilgrims. Yeah, so the 6 pilgrims drive up into the mountains, and Bruno insists upon stopping for coca, because apparently it's a cure for altitude sickness. Not that that helps Manuela later in the challenge. Spoilers.
Doesn't cure your scraped knees.
No. And the group must cycle up a road to a church which has an elevation of 3,375 metres. Along the way, there are boards with religious information which they've got to try and remember. In the chapel, a priest will ask one person one question. If they are right, they earn €3,000 for the pots. And they've got 90 minutes to make the climb. Only those who complete the climb will be able to help with the question at the top. And along the way, they get the names of the last 10 popes, the 14 Stations of the Cross, a picture of the Last Supper with which disciples sat where, and Hail Mary in Spanish to memorise.
As I said, like, Kathy and Gilles work together closely on a lot of challenges. They have a really legitimate bond.
Yeah, it's probably because they're approaching this game in exactly the same way, which is laser-focused, not letting anyone come in their way.
Laser-focused and intense.
Yeah. Kathy has, I would say, the intensity of the pair of them, because Gilles just kind of takes a step back and lets her be a screaming banshee at times. But it's really interesting to see the relationship that forms with them starting in this episode.
Well, that even was in episode 1, where they were joking around on the same tables together in breakfast, at breakfast on the first morning of the game, too.
Yeah, I don't think we really see their bond be formed until this challenge, though. It's interesting to watch this challenge and go, for the first time, yeah, Kathy and Jill are really a pair in this now.
Yeah.
So, quite quickly, Marc and Manuela struggle at the back. Well, more Manuela, because she does say that the coca did not help. And Gilles proves to have quite a good memory because he has most of the Hail Mary memorised in Spanish pretty soon after reading it. And Thibaut says that the popes will be the most important, as the current pope is Argentinian. And this is a running joke that I've spotted in the first few episodes, is that anything you see Thibaut say on screen will never come true. We had it last week with him saying that Ruth was definitely the mole. He's 100% confident. Ruth was not the mole. She went home first. You have him say it here where he goes, yeah, the popes will be the most important because the current pope's Argentinian. The popes are ultimately irrelevant to this challenge. And twice in the first 3 episodes of this season, you see Thibaut go, I am 100% confident on who the mole is. And it's like, dude, you shouldn't be confident. You're completely wrong.
Even wrong multiple times. Maybe it's time to take a step back and be a bit more cautious.
Yeah, I'd forgotten that Thibaut is essentially the James Miller of this season.
The Oracle. I was about to say that, I'm like, no one's going to get the Survivor pullout reference.
Anything you see him say is wrong.
Yeah, especially what really didn't come true was on his application when he said that he loves being blindfolded and also loves heights. It's like, man, Thibaut, you gotta really learn more about yourself.
So Thibaut's tyre gets a puncture, and they decide to leave him behind, and then Manuela falls off her bike, luckily on gravel, and injures her knee. And she tells Marc to leave her behind with 17 minutes left on the clock, and Gilles, Kathy, Bruno and Marc all make it to the top of the mountain and decide to take a vote as to who goes in, and they choose Gilles. He can come back out once to confer, and the question is to put all 14 Stations of the Cross in order. However, they only saw 11 of them.
As soon as you think, wow, 14 things need to be in the correct sequence, and I only saw 11 of them, do you even bother going back into the chapel for a second time?
No, as soon as they started missing signs, you're like, yeah, it's game over here, isn't it? But it's probably for the best that it was anyone other than Marc going into the chapel, because if he had to come out of somewhere to confer, he might have been a little bit uncomfortable with the concept.
Come on. Yes. I'm coming out, guys.
So, something else I had forgotten about this challenge, by the way, is the fact that on no less than 3 occasions, Gilles swears in the chapel, apologises to the priest, and then does it again anyway. And it just becomes this recurring thing where he can't stop swearing in a church.
Yeah, I noticed that too. Just F-bomb. He's like, I'm not supposed to be not supposed to say that in here. Oh, F-bomb, F-bomb, F-bomb. Fuck. You have Tourette's, my son.
I had genuinely forgotten how sweary Gilles is.
Oh, I haven't.
He is really, really sweary at times.
He's, I think, the most sweary contestant the contestant who's uttered the most profanity of probably any contestant on reality TV or close to it.
I'd be genuinely interested to know if, after this season, the contestants were told not to swear as much, because nobody comes even close to Gilles after this season.
Well, at least with Belgian television, they don't get censored. They can use that footage.
Yeah, but if you think about it, in the seasons following this one, no one even ever comes close to Gilles. There's so much less swearing that we actually hear.
That could just be because of the contestants, though. May not be a set rule. It's not like, say, the American or Canadian shows where we know they limited how much they swear on TV, where they outright tell the contestants, "Hey, you got to limit it." But with Gilles, it's constant, so we know that they're not limiting or removing footage of him.
Yeah. So Kathy jokes that he's taking forever in the chapel. Is he making a confession that he's the mole? And then, with 7 minutes to go, she ends up biking down the hill to try and find the missing Stations of the Cross that they'd missed. With 3 minutes left, she still isn't back, so Gilles runs back in, has a guess, and is wrong, and earns no money for the pot. At which point, he swears again twice. And he ended up having 1 pair wrong, which is enough to fail this challenge.
My favorite part is the subtle thing in the edit where they just show the priest casually going on his bike and cycling away.
Yeah, he's not having any trouble with the altitude whatsoever, despite the fact that Manuel is just kind of limping up the hill, dying.
Maybe he competes in Tour de France. He is God in those wheels.
They call him the Holy Roller. So, for their side of the challenge, Hannah, Isabel and Stijn are accompanied by Papa Bear to the local football stadium, and they win €3,000 by scoring 3 penalties against the goalkeeper of the local team. There are 10 brain teasers set up on the pitch. When they begin thinking, a flat ball will begin inflating. If they take too long, it explodes and is unusable. Any puzzles that they solve mean balls that they can use to score against the goalkeeper. And I do have to say, for a challenge that revolves around 10 brain teasers, we only actually see 2 of them. and 7 of those 8 we don't see are the ones that they solve. And it sort of defies the rule that they've set up in later seasons, which goes against what I say, which is that watching people solve puzzles is never interesting. Because in later seasons, you would see every detail of them solving puzzles. In this season, they just kind of go, yeah, we know that watching people solve puzzles isn't particularly interesting, so we're just going to skip over it, because they were successful with that bit.
Yeah, they just kept the fun one in. I think I talked about in the last one where there's where you have to figure out which way the bus is that kindergartners and first graders are able to do, just because they have that, they know what they're looking for. Meanwhile, when you're an adult, you're thinking of so many different things when you look at a picture of a bus and the signs. Like Hannah was going on about the colors and just looking at the entire picture, while a little kid is just like, oh yeah, you can't see the door, so it has to be going the other way.
Yeah, it's not just toddlers who would solve this puzzle, though, because my first thought when I saw it was, they drive on the right, therefore it's heading towards Salta, which is on the left of our picture.
What's funny, too, is that as soon as they find out they're wrong, Hannah's like, oh, of course, it's so obvious. It's a habit of hers after each time she gets stumped by a little mini game or puzzle.
Yeah.
I like how there's another explosion with the soccer balls when they got it wrong.
Yeah, it's another one of those ideas that we like to talk about with Belgian Mole, where they go, we've got this great challenge of making them solve brain teasers, what can we use as a timer? I know, we'll explode footballs. And then you have to realise that there is the chance of people going, I can hear explosions, I better ring the police here. This could be dangerous.
I can assure you that Argentina is not known for a lack of political unrest. There's an explosion, and there's law enforcement nearby. They're thinking something's going on.
Yeah, they're thinking shit's about to go down.
Especially in the later episodes once they go to La Plata.
So they earn 7 balls and must each try and score at least once, and they have to get 3 in the net to win the €3,000. And Hannah's up first, hers is easily caught. Stein's first attempt is the first success. Isabel's up third and she gets caught. And then Stein's second attempt is also successful, as is his third, winning €3,000. And then Papa Bear has a final offer for them. If they want to gamble, they can take 1 more penalty. If it's scored, they will double their winnings. If not, they will earn nothing for this challenge. And Hannah and Isabel both want to gamble. And Papa Bear asks for fun who's taking it, and then just throws the ball straight to Stijn. And he shoots, and the goalkeeper goes the wrong way, meaning they earn €6,000 for the pot.
And that's the time that nobody suspected Stijn for the rest of the season.
Yeah, I know we discussed this last week, but it's really interesting to watch Stijn, because he earns so much money for the team throughout every challenge that he possibly can. There is like 1 or 2 where he personally does not earn money, and nobody suspects him as a result.
Well, he never attempted to sabotage anything. He put maximum effort into every challenge. So there's no way anyone was going to suspect him after having a perfect run of 2 episodes.
Yeah, but then you look at the next scene after this, which is Hannah, Isabel and Stijn trying to come up with a cover story to minimise the damage that's going to be done for them, because they know that Stijn ain't the mole, and they can't have their advantage of knowing that Stein's not the mole be translated to everyone else, because the best tactic you can have in the mole is trying to make other people suspect you, if you're a contestant.
Yeah, if you're Hannah and Isabel, you realize, okay, we know what really happened here. We know for sure Stijn is not the mole, but for us to advance further into the game, we need everyone else to think Stijn is the mole. So that was interesting. That really gave Hannah and Isabel an advantage in the game, to be like, well, okay, Stijn really went really far out of his way to earn €6,000 for the pot, and he succeeded with the banana boat. Along with everyone else. And then the first episode, he was the very last one. Didn't have to take the plunge, but he did. Just all these different things that it's like, man, Stijn, if you want to play the mole a little bit better, you got to have some sort of suspicion upon yourself. Essentially, Hannah and Isabel are playing the game for him. Because Stijn wasn't going to come up with that lie that he didn't really participate in solving the puzzles. That was all Hannah and Isabel needing to do the legwork on that.
Yeah, so they decide to try and bend the truth and make themselves a little bit more suspicious after such a successful performance, and they decide to have Hannah and Isabel underplay Stein's performance in front of everyone else at dinner that evening. and they earned €6,000 of possible 9,000 for this pair of challenges, €10,000 of possible 18,000 for the episode, and 16,500 out of possible 35,000 for the season so far.
And all of the group with all the suspicious people did not earn any money in this challenge.
Shock, gasp, horror.
Yeah.
And then after dinner and a big glass of wine, it's time for the test. 20 questions on the identity and actions of the mole. Whoever knows least goes home, hopefully not via paint bomb. And Thibaut said that he'd heard Stijn wasn't very useful at the challenge earlier, despite scoring all the penalties. Stijn says that Gilles memorised Hail Mary in Spanish, and if he's the mole, it would be perfect to try and get into the chapel, knowing that that wasn't the correct thing to memorise. Bruno says he's starting to suspect Stijn and Kathy. Kathy really wants to go into the chapel but didn't have anything memorised. Gilles suspects Bruno because he'd be a good mole. Kathy says Bruno was suspicious after memorising everything and then saying he didn't know when he got to the top of the mountain. Isabel's also on Kathy. She's been acting more suspicious every day, but she's wondering whether she's just playing hard. Manuela says she's spreading between Kathy and Gilles, and Marc says that he doesn't think anyone suspects him, but if he keeps slipping on through without writing things down, that will make him more suspicious.
He couldn't find a pen in 5 days.
No, and they're staying in nice hotels. At least steal one from a hotel. There is no excuse 2 episodes in to not have a pen for your diary yet.
¿Dónde es un stilo?
And at the execution, Bruno, Kathy, Thibaut and Gilles all get green screens before Marc is the second person sent home. And Manuela is heartbroken.
Yep.
So next week, there is a paintball game, the chain gang game returns, and Kathy cries on the phone.
One thing I want to point out with these first 2 episodes is that in other versions, there were very clear situations where an exemption or pass fragging could be brought into play. For instance, say, in the first episode, when they're dangling above the water, whoever was last to take the plunge, which was Stijn, if that was the American version, I guarantee you there would have been an exemption offer right then saying, well, everyone else has jumped, but if you don't jump, you get an exemption, but no money goes into the pot. And here in the second challenge, with Gilles going into the chapel, once he's in the chapel, I'm sure there would have been some sort of offer, or with Stijn taking that last double or nothing penalty shot. There definitely would have been twists. These are all these challenges are played in a very straightforward manner with no real dilemmas at all.
Yeah, it's really interesting that you say that, because after this episode, pretty much every episode up until episode 6, episode 7, has an exemption game of some description or a yoker game of some description. And it begins from Chain Gang next week. So have you got anything else you want to say? We didn't really eulogise Marc at all.
I have nothing else to add about this episode. Marc didn't take any notes for 2 rounds, and shockingly enough, he's the first person to leave the game after Ruth is gone.
Yeah, I would say we've never seen anyone like Marc since, because the old man archetype is a thing, but we've never seen any old man archetype filler who is so pig-headed about not taking notes, for example.
There's a big lesson learned here for all the subsequent seasons, is that contestants know, hey, I should take a note. Don't take 0 notes. Just take at least 1 note, and you'll be in better shape. You'll have a fighting chance to spread on the quizzes.
I'm just trying to recall, is there a challenge coming up in this season where everyone gets to read each other's mole diaries?
They like to do that Final Four, don't they?
Is it the Treehouse one, or is that South Africa?
Might be. I thought there's one where there was access to such and such's diary.
Because I was thinking, there is absolutely no benefit in looking in Marc's diary whatsoever, even if you get the option.
Yeah. It's for the camping challenges, I guess that's free toilet paper.
That is true, and as we found out with the coronavirus pandemic, people love toilet paper, so maybe Marc's diary is going to become useful in that respect.
It's more expensive than gasoline now.
Yeah. So, thank you for listening to our Mol Belgie Argentina recap. We'll be back next week to recap episode 3, and also, it's Logan's birthday episode. Don't forget, you can contact us on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, or Instagram, where we are RTV Warriors, or you can email us at contact@rtvwarriors.com. Logan is on Twitter @Logsquacky, and I'm MJ Harmstone. See you next week.
Peace out and just chill till the next flavoring.